Hey guys, welcome to the Casual Couch. This is Kinshu. She's obnoxious. She's here to help me film a video for you today. If you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Julian. I don't always look like this. I've been filming a lot of videos today, so that's why I'm dressed like this. Normally I talk about bookish things and writing with some nerdy things thrown in, but today I thought it would be fun to do something a little different. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's kind of an apocalypse right now. Just like a low-key apocalypse. But it's closed a lot of schools, and a lot of my friends who are parents and parents that I know, oh my gosh, Kinshu, will you settle down, have had to start helping their children learn at home. And I was homeschooled my entire school career? What do you call it? I was homeschooled until I graduated from high school. Like, all of my schooling, my primary education was homeschooled. By the way, if you hear noises in the background, that's my dog chewing on a chewy. I put out a call for an AMA, Ask Me Anything, about being homeschooled, just so that, you know, parents could maybe feel a bit better about having to have their kids learn at home for a little while. I will only be able to talk about things from my personal homeschool experience and what I got from my friends who were also homeschooled, but I still think it will be helpful and also fun. Okay, I got a few questions from Twitter and a few from Instagram, I think. I don't think I only got like one from Facebook, if I remember. If I missed your question, please let me know. I also promised I would keep it anonymous so that people could literally ask me anything, even if it's something that seemed like it might be like weird to ask. I don't think anybody asked me any weird questions, but I'm going to start on Twitter. First question is, how does it work? That's complicated. Is it online school, or do your parents actually become your teachers? Nowadays, I think it's a lot more online. I am a millennial, so when I was doing a lot of my schooling, online wasn't really a big option. Even when I did high school, I went through a correspondence course where now a lot of people would do it, I think, online. But yes, your parents do become your actual teachers. There's no like other teacher out there, you know, that they report to. They are your teachers. Primarily for me and my siblings, it was my mom, and my dad would occasionally step in if he had something specific he wanted to teach us. Did you ever wish you could go to normal school? I don't like normal school as a term. It's public school. It's not normal school. Homeschooling is not abnormal. It's just a kind of schooling. Anyway, I'm not shaming this person for asking that. I'm just putting that out there that can be annoying if you're talking to a homeschooler and you call it normal school versus homeschooling. Not great. But no, I don't ever wish I was public schooled. I think somebody else had a question like this later on, so I might go into greater detail there. And why did your parents choose to homeschool? There were a variety of reasons. I'm not 100% certain. I know that religion was one of them when they started homeschooling us, but we aren't, like, I'm sure you're immediately jumping to the thought of like people, religious sects living in the wilderness and not letting their children learn about the real world or evolution or things like that. That wasn't the kind of thing that we were really like, we weren't exposed to that. It's weird to me that people always, when I say I was homeschooled, that's immediately where their brains go, because that's a lot what's in the media. Ordinary, everyday, average homeschoolers really don't get into the media. But religion was a factor, I believe, in my parents deciding to homeschool us, as well as just like not liking how it was run in public school. Both my parents went to public school, and I think that at least my mom was kind of, you know, not completely satisfied with that experience. And for those of you who are curious, yes, my mom also went to college, but she did not go to college for education. You don't need to, in most places, have any kind of like special education to homeschool, which is an advantage, and some people might also raise their eyebrow at that. This next person asks, what did you love or hate about it? I obviously loved the freedom. I was pretty much my own kid. Some people would consider what we did unschooling because it was not very structured. Like, we still learned all the fundamentals, but there was no rigid structure to it, really. And I think my brain personally thrives really well on being self-driven and motivating myself and choosing what I'm interested in learning outside of like the fundamentals. And being homeschooled also, and this is a really big plus for me personally, allowed me to go slow when I needed to and allowed me to be advanced when I needed or wanted to. So obviously I'm a writer, and so words were always something I was skilled with. My reading comprehension, even as a child, was incredibly high, and I was always writing. So for me, English was something that I excelled at, and because of that, because I was homeschooled and it was flexible, I was allowed to advance as far as I wanted in that, while math, my weakest subject, I was able to hang back and make sure I stayed there until I understood it instead of pushing forward with my grade, whether I understood it or not. Those are my questions on Twitter. I believe my only question on Facebook was, what do you do about prom? We don't have one. This might be a terrifying concept for people who went to public school, but like, you can get through an entire school experience without ever having a school dance. It's honestly not as important of a formative thing in your life as many people might think it is. And in case you're wondering, well, without school dances, how will you ever fall in love? I did find someone to be in love with, and I've been married for about 13 years, so I was not stunted by a lack of prom. Let's go over to Instagram. Right, the first question is, and again, if I miss any of you, please let me know. First question is, if you had a choice to do it all over again, would you? The answer is, fuck yes. I loved being homeschooled. For me, it was definitely the best choice with just my personality type. And again, part of that question, would you have liked to have tried going to public school? No. I had many friends who went to public school, and everything they told me made it sound absolutely miserable. So no, I don't think I would like to give that a try, thanks anyway. The next question is, what was a standard day like for you being homeschooled? Usually, if I'm remembering correctly, it has been a minute. I'm in my 30s now, so it has been a while. But what I remember, at least when my schooling was, we had assignments and lessons that we did have to complete in the day, but there was no rigidity to it. So like, if I didn't feel like doing my schoolwork until the afternoon or the evening, I could wait. Or, which is often the case with me because I'm the kind of person who likes to do the stuff I'm not looking forward to so then I can get to the good stuff, I would do my schoolwork as soon as I could, and then I would have the rest of the day free. There's a lot less sitting down and just doing schoolwork, at least with my homeschool experience, than people might think is necessary for a child to learn. But you don't actually have to be in a classroom all day long to get a good education. So I would do my like basic classwork, math, reading, all of that stuff, history, whatever was on the docket for that day. If there was a new thing that I had never done before, Mom would sit down and we would learn that concept. But if it was things that I had done before, it was pretty much all self-directed. Read the instructions in the book, comprehend the instructions in the book, follow the instructions in the book, and do whatever test or problems or whatever, or write whatever was expected of you at the end. When I did get to high school and I decided to go through a correspondence course from which I got an actual diploma, nobody panic, there was a lot more like classwork. I think a lot of my schooling involved things that interested me in a hands-on way versus a sitting down and looking at books way, which for my brain is so much of a better way for me to learn than reading it from a book. And the rest of this question is kind of stuff I already talked about. Schedule, homework, working through subjects you were less fond of. We all know how I handled that. And what would you do differently knowing what you do now? I don't know as if I do anything differently. I loved being homeschooled. Maybe there were times where I put off my schoolwork too long. Next questions. What were your favorite projects? I'm not exactly sure what this means. I guess like your favorite subjects maybe? We all know I loved English, but I was also really into like nature and art. And my parents, especially my mom, always made sure, and my grandfather when he was alive, always made sure that if we ever expressed an interest in anything, we were allowed to explore that interest further. Like even if it was a fleeting interest, there was never a, oh, you don't want to do that. It was always a, how can I help you learn about that thing you're excited about? I think if you are homeschooling and you're not sure, like, how do I teach this kid? Find out what they're into, and a lot of the other stuff will come along with that thing that they're really into. How many hours were you working on school stuff per day? Like concentrated school stuff, I want to say like 4. Maybe I'm wrong. My mom can correct me if she watches this. She'll be like, it was way more than that or something. But that's about, like, seems like about average per day of concentrated, sit on your ass school work. There was a lot of other learning throughout the day, but it wasn't on paper from a book learning. Did you still get winter and summer vacations? Not really. That's one thing. We just didn't really do vacations. It didn't seem to make sense. If you're always schooling from home and you do have a lot more of a relaxed school schedule, why would you need like a vacation for the entire summer when you can just sort of steadily learn like your whole life? Now, that did give us opportunities to be like, let's set aside schoolwork for a couple of weeks because we're doing this and we don't have enough time. So it allowed for that wiggle room where we could essentially have a small vacation whenever we needed it versus plopping a big old one right in the middle of summer or whatever. Who was your primary teacher and were they fair graders? As I said, my primary teacher was my mother, and up until high school, we didn't even do grades. Grades are unimportant. Grades are just a binary. People would always ask us even what grade we were in, and we never knew because our say my math book was for grade 4, but my English book was for grade 6. Like, what grade am I in? I used to wish that people would just ask me how old I was because that's what they meant. And the last question is, did you graduate early? No, I graduated actually a year late, but that's because I started my schooling a year late. That's one thing my mom wanted to do with us, is start our kindergarten a year later than most people start it, because she felt like little kids should have a little bit more time to be little kids. But I don't feel like that stunted me in any way. I was just like one, increment behind at like a year, and now in my 30s that does not matter at all. I think those are all of my questions for this AMA. If I missed you, please let me know. I do want to answer one more question that we homeschoolers always get. Well, there's like two. There's two that I commonly get. The first one, say it with me, homeschool kids. How were you socialized? We hate that question. Please stop asking it. Most of us are not living in isolated sects in the mountains, okay? Again, whatever we decided to take interest in was nourished, and many of those interests involved getting out and being around other people. Like, we all did 4-H, and I was also, and my brother were both in theater very heavily from the age of like 13 onward. So we were always around people and we were being socialized, but we were also being socialized in a much more diverse age group, which I personally feel like is a bit healthier than constantly being crammed in with people who are only your own age. That's a me thing. That's just something that I feel. But yes, homeschoolers usually do get a perfectly reasonable amount of being social. I have had some people blame the fact that I am kind of shy and standoffish and socially awkward on being homeschooled, but I think they've actually got it reversed. Because I was socially anxious, it was good that I was homeschooled. Being public schooled was never going to take away who I am fundamentally as a person. I am introverted. My parents are introverted. My grandparents on both sides are pretty darn introverted. I think I come by that pretty honestly versus having it foisted upon me by being homeschooled. If I was a more extroverted and socially needy kid, I would have just found more ways to get out there and be social as a homeschooler. I never understood as a kid this desire to see your friends every single day of the week. That sounded exhausting. I loved my friends, but I didn't want to see them every day. It gives you a chance to disconnect and just think about something besides the social politics of your particular school for a minute. And the other question that I get asked, and again, please stop asking homeschoolers this question, do you feel like you're as smart as everyone else? People just blurt that out, and I don't think they think about how that sounds. What they mean is, do you think that you got like a fair education? Do you think that you got the same level of education as everyone else? And yes, I 100% do. I can hold my own with any public school person. There are definitely people who went on to higher education who have different and more knowledge from me in certain areas, but I was not left behind as far as the fundamentals. And in fact, often I can function better, even in places where I struggle. An anecdote that I'm very proud of is that last year I had to take a class for my job, which was very, very math-based. And I studied every single night. I studied my ass off, and my husband helped me so I could pass this class. And I hate math, and I was having anxiety attacks and freaking out, but because I had those fundamentals, and once I got it clicked into my head, I did better at the math than most of the people in my class, and I was helping the guy who was next to me, who was considerably younger than me, and therefore much closer himself to his primary education. Please stop asking homeschooled people if they think that they are as smart as everyone else. There's a really common misconception that homeschool kids are backwards and aren't learning everything that they need to learn about math and science and history and everything. And yes, that can 100% exist. And I've known a few of them, people who homeschool their kids but don't actually give them any schooling. That certainly happens. I also knew so many homeschooled kids when I was growing up who were getting the same solid, healthy education that I was getting. You don't even notice people like me who are homeschooled unless we tell you, because we end up being just about like everyone else in the end. This was really talky and long. I hope a few of you stuck around. Thank you to the people who asked questions. I hope this is helpful to any parents who are sort of having to pseudo-homeschool right now. I think the takeaways from this are that your kid does not have to be sitting down and doing structured lessons for nearly as much of the day as you might think that they have to, and also to seek out and foster what your kid is interested in. Trains, spaceships, animals, even video games can be a gateway to learn any of the other subjects. When I was growing up, some of my brothers and sisters were really pushing to learn how to read because they wanted to play the same video games as me, and there wasn't really a lot of voicing in video games. It was all text boxes. Yeah, just about anything can be motivating to kids. Okay guys, I'm gonna stop rambling. Jeez, shut up, Julian. Too much. If you, for some reason, though, liked what you saw and you want to see more of me, you can check out my channel. There's a ton of content here. I talk about writing and books and some nerdy things. Also, if you want to support me monetarily, I have a Patreon where for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to exclusive videos not seen here on the regular channel, as well as other perks. If you have any questions for me and you don't want to ask them here in the comments, all the links to my social media are in the doobly-doo for ease of your clicking. I give you my permission to ask me things about being homeschooled that maybe are a little bit weird, but I also reserve the right not to answer if they're too weird. And I will see all of you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye! Did someone say patrons? It was me. I said patrons just now. Try to keep up. This month's patrons are Adrienne, Lennox, Amanda, Irene, Jenny, Jesper, Lisa, Ryakio, Sabby Panda, Savvy, Scribbling Cat, and Zaire. We'd like to welcome Zaire, who is our newest patron. They don't have anything specific for me to shout out, but I know that they would love to shout out that once all of this plague is over and you're looking for an activity that's fun to do with friends, check out LARPing, specifically Amped Guard. It's a good time. And thanks again to all of my amazing patrons for all their support. I especially appreciate that you're able to stick around in these interesting times.